Awesome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Today I'm going to talk about really how to bridge the gap of your trigger and your response. We all get triggered, right? But there's something that happens in between, and I want to talk about that. Whether you're in a conversation with somebody and then all of a sudden you feel triggered, whether you're in a situation and you feel triggered about something that causes you to respond or react or do something that's not very connected to your authentic self. There's a quote that I want to talk about, which is by Viktor Franklin. He was a guy that survived the concentration camp with the Germans. And he said this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. I want to break that down because it's so connected to what I actually teach in my program. Discovering Your Authentic Self program, I teach about the gap between your trigger and how you respond to it. So he breaks it down with stimulus, response, which I call trigger. The response, there is a space. There is a space in between your trigger and your reaction. And that space is where you get to choose. And this is where your power is. But that choice is where most people become a victim. Most people are a victim in that choice because it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable when you're triggered in between your response. What do you feel? I'll tell you what I feel, and maybe you can relate to it. When you're triggered and somebody does something, disrespects you or does something, or we're within a relationship, guess what happens? For me, I feel a sense of grief. I feel alone. I feel abandoned. And when I feel those feelings, I feel unsafe. And there's a few ways that I deal with feeling unsafe. Feeling unsafe for me is this. Number one, I will absolutely attack. I will attack. That means I will disrespect. I will do whatever it takes to feel safe again. So that's the response. That's a reaction, I should say, in between the space of when somebody triggers you and you want to respond back, or you want to either react. And that's the thing for me. My reaction is that. And what's your reaction? And another thing is when you feel unsafe, we tend to numb out. I'm going to numb the pain. So my response is to shut down. My response is to break down and withdraw. Another one would be either to rescue. I want to rescue somebody. So if that uncomfortability time where somebody may share something with you and you just want to jump in and rescue them, that response time is so important because something happens within that response time. Or I could blame. I could point the finger and blame at that person. It says, yeah, that's the reason why you're doing this. And then what happens? And we create an entire life of the same pattern, the same way we react, and we're not growing. So the space is where our power lies. Remember, a victim thinks that it doesn't have any choices, right? But the last part of that quote is, in response lies our growth and freedom. You see, the thing that I just told you about, the loneliness, the abandonment, the feeling of not safe, that leads us to attack, withdraw, blame, or rescue, that leads us to slavery. It leads us to addiction. It leads us to creating the same type of relationship over and over and over again. But what you do in that space is extremely important. How you deal with yourself, because maturity and growth and freedom is the thing that plays. Growth and freedom. What's the opposite of growth? Stuck. Do you feel that stuckness? What's the opposite of freedom? Being in slavery to our own ways of thinking, to our own emotions. So these are some of the things. I want to say something. I heard this. The seconds, a different way of responding in 1 second, or maybe pausing for 1 second, makes the biggest difference. And a lot of time for me, I want to shift so fastly. I want to change. So I'm in a growth process and I want to change right away. I want to shift right away. But guess what? It takes time. It takes time if you've been operating in 30 to 40 years in a certain way, and then all of a sudden you want to shift and you want to change. It takes time. So the patience within that growth is really important. Do you know a runner in the Olympic could train all year long to just be a little faster, 1 second faster? That 1 second faster could break a world's record. And I want to ask you this. They work really hard for years to break that 1 second cycle, 1 second between where they are and where they want to be in that gap. What about you? How long are you taking to respond or to work on yourself so you could have that little bit more than that little second, that little minute before you respond, before you react? How much work have you done to work on you so you could respond versus react? How much work have you done? And I think that's the thing. We tend to want to do things so fast. I want to get just quick fix right away, but not knowing that the gap in between is where the growth is. This is where you get to trust. This is where you get to invest back in you. This is where shifting and changing and freedom lies, in between your trigger and your response, or I would say your reaction. You could be, like I just said, you could be feeling unsafe or choosing to feel safe, and feeling safe comes from you healing inside of you. A lot of time you focus on outside, we focus on the behavior, we focus on, I gotta change the way I do things, but it starts with your inside. It starts with your inside. So if you want to work on your relationship between your triggers and how you respond to life, because guess what? Just like somebody that's in Olympic, they could shift and break like records, but they work really years. That's 1 second, or that one pause, or that different way of respond could literally change the trajectory of your life. It could literally change your relationship. It could change so many things within you and within the outside of it. But it takes time. It takes investment. It takes you to realize that you're in control, and that power in between your response, your reaction, and your triggers is key. And that's what we do on Discovering Your Authentic program. That's what I do. I work on you being aware of what's going on with you. Why are you even reacting the way you are? Being conscious about it, and then coming back and responding in a different way, being personally responsible. Responsibility is the ability to respond. So your ability to respond is in between that gap. So thank you for watching this. And if you want to be a part of that, you want to have that one connection with me, you want to talk more about that, write down respond, and then I'll reach out to you. Thank you for watching this, and please give some comments of what you got out of this talk. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you next week.